For those who are unfamiliar, this is a TV show called Leo and Layla. It's produced by Prager. It's children's propaganda is what it is. They have a number of different subjects, different episodes, stuff like that. This one is about the Bible character Esther, who, by the way, to my knowledge, is completely fake. Like, this doesn't even belong in the Bible. This book shouldn't be part of Holy Scripture to any degree, but that's beside the point. So Leo and Layla are anti-communist, pro-conservative kids, apparently. Let's listen to what they have to say about the book of Esther. Oh, and they're time travelers, too. I don't know if you knew this. If you're on YouTube, you can hit the arrow keys to jump backward or forward 5 seconds. J and L jump 10 seconds. And comma and period jump 1 frame at a time. So I'm jumping forward 1 frame at a time right now. Let me just explain why I want to talk about this in the first place, okay? There's this TV show called Flashpoint. It's owned and operated by Kenneth Copeland. It's hosted by a guy named Gene Bailey. This is him on the left here. Listen to what he had to say to Hank Kunneman not too long ago. This is Valentine's Day 2023. Listen to this.
When we look back on Hitler went for the youth. The enemy always goes for the youth. We must take up arms and go for our youth, arms of the truth and of godly principles. But
I mean, it goes on to show you that Hank Kunneman is trying to hawk his children's books and magazines and stuff. That's why we need to talk about Leo and Layla. That's what this is all about. This is the plan. The right, Kenneth Copeland, evangelical, conservative Christian types of people are setting out to brainwash children. Their words, not mine. That's why I want to talk about this. So, yeah, let's give this a listen.
I'm exhausted.
From volleyball?
No, I'm mentally exhausted.
From your mom.
I
guess this is like I said, this is a children's propaganda. So everything in it, every frame, every single thing mentioned is in there for a very specific intentional reason. Remember that. But I guess that this is trying to communicate that gossip is a bad thing, that you should keep to yourself or something. I don't know. Interesting. So this is a unique way of doing it. Think about what they're doing here. They said be an influencer. What they really meant was covertly influence people without them realizing that you're influencing them. That's really what they meant, okay? Now, there's nothing inherently wrong about doing this, but you'll see in a minute that what they're going to suggest by the end of this isn't that great. They're basically trying to get Leo and Layla, and by proxy, you or your children or whoever is watching this, to influence the people around them to be religious conservative nutcases. That's the ultimate point of this TV show. And they frame it in a non-confrontational, non-aggressive way. Just be an influencer. People love being influencers, right? YouTubers are influencers. That's not really the same thing that they're suggesting here. But okay, let's keep listening.
If you want your friends to stop gossiping, I bet you can say something about it and they'll listen.
I don't know. I'm kind of scared too. What if they turn on me for speaking up?
Weren't you a little scared about being the first to get bangs?
True.
We're always using the history app to give me pep talks. Let's find a historical influencer to give you one.
Okay. Influencer. Where are we? It's so beautiful.
Somewhere a long, long, long time ago.
Welcome to Shushan, capital of ancient Persia.
This has got to be a palace.
Ooh, royalty. Let's go find a monarch.
Again, this is about Esther from the Bible. That book did not belong in the Bible at all.
That's got to be the queen over there.
Who are these children before me?
It is I, Leo, and this is my sister Layla.
I am Esther, Queen of Persia. Are you the new staff?
No, ma'am. I mean, Your Highness.
I'm pretty sure she's Esther, like the book in the Bible, Esther.
Oh, cool. We're time travelers from the future, and we're searching for an important influencer. Can you help us?
Well, thanks to my influence, I did save all my people from complete annihilation. So, yes, I think you're in the right place.
Layla is one of the most popular girls in her school, and I'm telling her she could influence her friends to not gossip and be nicer to each other, but she's kind of scared to speak up.
If they think I'm going against them, my friends could make my life seriously miserable.
I completely understand. I've been in your shoes, and it's very difficult to influence people if they think you're working against them. You will have to work strategically and persuasively to lead your friends in a positive direction.
That sounds complicated.
You're right, complicated and difficult, but not impossible. I'll tell you how I did it. As a young girl, my cousin Mordecai raised me as his own daughter.
Imagine if our cousin Brad raised us.
This is so, disturbing the way that it's designed to appeal to children with these stupid little jokes and stuff like that. I think the reason they went to a Bible book in the Old Testament as the thing that they wanted to talk about as their subject of choice or whatever is because Dennis Prager is actually Jewish despite being a Christian nationalist. He fights for Christian nationalism, but is Jewish. It's crazy. So anyway, yeah, this is just straight up cringe. Keep listening here.
That would be a total disaster.
Yeah, but we could have ice cream for breakfast.
Fortunately, Mordecai was a wonderful father figure, though I was never fed any of this iced cream you speak of.
You should get your staff on that.
So during this time, all of Persia was ruled by the powerful King Ahasuerus. He often had enormous parties where he boasted about his wealth, possessions, and even his wife.
He sounds really stuck up.
People who always show off are the worst.
He could be awful.
That's another example of a value they want to instill in people. Don't show off the things that you have, I guess.
He could be awful. For instance, one day, Ahasuerus summoned his wife, Queen Vashti, to stand before him and his party guests so he could show off how beautiful she was.
Wow, that's super rude. Hey everyone, it's time to stare at my wife. Awkward. How did she feel about that?
She refused to participate, and as a result, Ahasuerus took away her royal title and began to search for a new queen. So he hosted a royal beauty pageant. Since many have told me I'm blessed with beauty, I joined the pageant with many other lovely young girls from Persia.
Well, that's sad for the old queen, but sounds like fun for you.
It wasn't all fun. I had to go through intense training before I even had a chance to meet the king.
Oh, like sports camp.
She needed to impress the king, Leo, not the little league coach.
It was more like intense Persian beauty treatments and learning the customs to act properly royal.
Ooh, that's my kind of training.
Because women only care about looking pretty for men. That's the only thing that's on their mind all the time, right?
It was difficult, and I also had to keep a big secret from everyone.
What was it?
That I'm Jewish.
Why couldn't you tell people you were a Jew?
Well, here in Shushan, the Persians are in charge, so they treat their fellow Persians better than they treat other people like the Jews. My cousin knew that no matter how beautiful I am, a Jewish girl would not be treated fairly, so he told me to keep my identity secret. I trusted him, so I told no one. When it was finally my turn to meet King Ahasuerus, he was amazed, and I was crowned queen. I know it sounds like life couldn't get any better, but it definitely became more complicated.
How so?
Well, soon after I became queen, cousin Mordecai discovered that 2 royal officers were plotting to kill my husband, the king. I immediately reported the conspiracy. My report was confirmed, and my husband's life was saved. Ahasuerus was grateful to my cousin and had the happenings recorded in the king's official book of events.
Again, this is all just apocryphal nonsense. From my understanding, a lot of this story didn't happen. Actually, let me just look here. Hang on. There's no reference to known historical events in this story. A general consensus, though this consensus has been challenged, has maintained that the narrative of Esther was invented in order to provide an etiology for Purim, and the name Ahasuerus is usually understood to refer to a fictionalized Xerxes I, who ruled the Achaemenid Empire between 486 and 465. Right, so there's actual evidence that this is a fake story, and there's also no evidence that it's a real story, basically, is the bottom line here. It sounds like it's just kind of like an apocryphal writing, or what's the word? Not apocryphal. It alludes to real events and tries to draw parallels. So anyway, kind of interesting. The story is completely fake as far as we can tell.
Ooh, official. Sounds important.
It became very important to Mordecai and me once our lives were in danger.
What? You and your cousin saved the king's life. You should have been super safe.
A few years went by, and Ahasuerus's highest nobleman, a man named Haman, decided he wanted to have all the Jews in Persia killed.
What?
Why?
Because my cousin wouldn't kneel before him.
Your cousin seems to always be mixed up in royal drama.
Well, your cousin seems to be mixed up in royal drama. Being killed for an intrinsic quality about you is not royal drama, for what it's worth. But anyways, the Jews have always been like the scapegoats of pretty much every society since the dawn of time, because they lived separately a lot of the time from everybody else. The people around, the people in the other societies didn't really want anything to do with them because they had different customs and stuff. So that led to different end results. Like during the Black Plague, Jews had different ways of handling bodies. You know, it was forbidden for them to like touch the dead bodies or be anywhere near them or anything. And that's in large part how a lot of disease was spread, right? So the Jews were not getting sick during the Black Plague because they had different customs about how to handle dead bodies. But everybody else was getting sick. And that led these people to believe that the Jews were orchestrating the whole thing. They were planning and making people sick directly because they were the only ones not getting sick. So that was basically why Jews were targeted in the Middle Ages as like evil and separate from everybody else and so on and so forth. And it's generally been that same pattern throughout history. That's why, you know, they wanted to target them. Not because the dude wanted to get involved in drama or didn't want to get involved in drama or whatever other thing. Had nothing to do with drama. This isn't drama. This is just hating somebody for some intrinsic quality about them. Plain and simple.
Why did he refuse to kneel?
Like all Jews, Mordecai was loyal to God, not to noblemen, like Haman.
That's the first commandment. Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
You're exactly right, Layla.
I memorized all 10 in Sunday school when I was younger.
See, again, they're showing in this children's propaganda that this is a virtue. It is virtuous for kids to be aware of the 10 commandments, go to Sunday school, so on and so forth.
Haman was furious that Mordecai wouldn't obey him, so he lied and told Ahasuerus that the Jewish people living in Persia followed their own laws and not his laws.
I bet Ahasuerus probably didn't like that very much.
He didn't, and he told Haman he could do whatever he wished to the Jewish people, my people. And what Haman wanted was death.
What did you do? Had you ever told Ahasuerus that you were Jewish?
No, I hadn't, and so perhaps I was safe, but I had to do what I could to help my people. I had to convince Ahasuerus to save the Jews of Persia. It was time to be brave and use my influence.
Oh, but weren't you scared Ahasuerus would turn on you, like he did with the last queen?
I thought he might, but I had to stand up for my people and our obedience to God over earthly authority. I had to be brave and bold.
So the message here is you have to open your mouth and talk about Jesus and conservative values and all of that stuff in school or around other people. You must. This is a virtuous thing for you to do. That's the whole idea here. That's what they're trying to communicate to children.
But I couldn't just barge into his chambers and start making demands. I had to be strategic and persuasive if I was going to have influence.
I love strategizing. What did you do?
Well, first, since it's technically punishable by death to see Ahasuerus without being summoned, I made sure I looked my best, so he would be happy to see me. And it worked. He welcomed me and held out his golden scepter.
What does that mean? Is that good?
Oh, yes. Holding out the golden scepter meant that I was welcome to be in his presence, and he wouldn't put me to death for intruding on him without an invitation.
Ooh, I need one of those. Layla, you are welcome to come into my room and escape death. This time.
This is so cringy. It's terrible.
You're such a nerd. So, Queen Esther, did you then ask him to save your people?
Not yet. Getting him in a positive mood was only the first step. I needed to be very careful how I eventually made my request for him to save the Jews.
Okay, so what they're saying here, I guess, is you should be like, do this in a calm, cool, and collected way without them really realizing. You know, this is actually, they're correct on this. Is a good way to talk to people, to get a point across. I advocate for influence methods regularly. Street epistemology is an influence method, for example. Socratic reasoning is an influence method. But you know what I'm not doing? I'm not talking to 8 to 10-year-old children and explaining to them how to influence people with psychological techniques. That's not what I'm doing. They are trying to convince children to influence their classmates with psychological techniques. And they're teaching them those psychological techniques. I mean, you remember from the beginning, right? About we have to get the children. If we can get the children, then we have everybody. We have them for life. Remember? That's what this is all about. If they can get children brainwashed from an early age, they can brainwash their friends with influence techniques.
So I didn't tell him what I wanted just yet. Instead, knowing how much Ahasuerus loves feasting and boasting, I asked him if I could organize a magnificent banquet in his honor.
Ah, I see what you're doing. Strategy. Like how I always butter Layla up before I ask to borrow her phone.
So that's why you've been so nice lately.
I don't quite understand why you would put butter on your sister. Things must be very different in the future. But anyway, remember when I said Ahasuerus' official book of events would become very important? Well, God made it to where Ahasuerus wasn't able to sleep that evening, and at his request, the record of his reign was read to him.
His life must be boring. Help me to fall asleep by reading all about me.
Okay, I would say his life is super exciting if that's what he's doing for fun, right? Okay.
Before he fell asleep, Ahasuerus was reminded of the time Mordecai saved his life, and so he decided to publicly honor him before the feast I was organizing.
I bet that Haman guy was so mad. He wanted the Jews killed because of your cousin.
Haman was not happy and made even more furious because he had to help honor Mordecai. That night at the banquet, the king was in a great mood and lovingly asked what I wished for, and said that he'd make it come true. Now was my best opportunity.
This should be, an indicator that this is a made-up story, right? Because everything works out in a very specific way that you've heard stories play out over generations and thousands of years. All of these stories have a very similar pattern. It's like Star Wars followed the exact same tropes that like a billion other stories followed. If the Book of Esther follows all these same exact storylines and tropes that have been followed for like millennia, it should be an indicator it's fake.
Ahasuerus was so happy with you, he was probably going to go along with whatever you asked.
I told Ahasuerus that my life and the lives of my people were in danger and asked that we be spared. Upset and confused, the king demanded to know why and who would do such a thing. That's when I revealed my Jewish identity and told him about Haman's evil plan to have the Jews killed. Thanks to my influence, Ahasuerus had a new decree written and my people were saved. The Jewish people still celebrate this event every year with a 2-day holiday called Purim.
I definitely think I understand how I can talk to my friends now and get every...
Yeah, there are a lot of Jewish kind of apocryphal stories like this. Like another one is the Jews were being oppressed by, I think, the Romans. I don't remember how this story goes exactly, but the Romans said they were owed 10% of all of the bread that the Jews produced, because that was their main export, was bread, right? So they were owed 10% of it. And they show up one time. The Jewish leaders get together. They try to figure out what to do about this. So what they do is they form their bread into a bagel shape. This is the origin of the bagel in this apocryphal fake story. And they give the holes, just the air, the 10% to the Romans. So when the Romans show up to get their bread or their 10% of the bread or whatever, they end up with just air because they took it out of the center. So anyway, there are a lot of apocryphal stories like that within Jewish lore. Doesn't mean that they're real. This one is not real. As far as we can tell, it's fake.
I definitely think I understand how I can talk to my friends now and get everyone to stop being so gossipy. It's not going to be easy, but as long as I'm not hostile or stuck up, I think I'll be able to make a positive impact. Thank you, Your Highness.
God put me in a position of influence for a reason, and I believe he's doing the same for you.
God put me in your mom.
Good luck, Layla.
It looks like you had a better day.
It was great. I used strategy to keep the conversation positive, and then the gossip started disappearing little by little. It's like my friends wanted to match the tone I was setting. Whenever someone did start gossiping, I kindly asked to change the subject, and luckily, nobody turned on me at all.
That's awesome! It's amazing what you can do with a little influence. Speaking of which,
See, this is what I'm saying. They're correct in this, right? This is correct. This is a good way to control conversations, prevent it from going downhill. But to convince children to push your agenda, to convince them to be conservative Christians, it's just too much, dude. It's too much.
if I host a pizza feast in your honor, do you think I can borrow your phone?
As Khalik Tessie says, yeah, this is correct use of influence, but the storyline, the subject, the people doing it, it's all just not good. It's not good. It shouldn't be in children's propaganda like this. So anyway, that's Leo and Layla. That's just one example. There are some pretty bad episodes. By and large, it's just little things like this. Like, they just try to slip in little messages like this. They don't want to make a big deal out of it. They don't want to, like, come out and say, like, kids, you should convert everybody around you to Jesus and hate them if they're gay and stuff like that. They're a lot more subtle about it. But that's the ultimate belief. And the only people that would be watching this in the first place are kids whose parents are really, really into PragerU and believe all this stuff already. So their parents are, if they're watching this, their parents are already talking to them about hating gay people and stuff. Anyway, I don't know. Let me know what you think about it. I think it's just disturbing that they're intentionally setting out to manipulate and use children this way. The pretext for them doing this is they claim the left is doing it. The left did it first. That's not true, first of all. And second, even if they did, I don't care. It's two wrongs don't make a right. What happened to that saying? Like, it just went right out the window. I don't know, let me know what you think about it in the comments. I'm just disturbed by this.